Pythagoras, probably one of the greatest philosophers of ancient Europe, left an unmistakable mark forever on Western thought. His legacy, though forgotten in the minds of contemporary people of now, still resonates throughout Western history, defining the very fabric of our society and how we perceive our reality to this day. His father, Nazarchus, was a merchant, and whilst traveling with his wife through the city of Delphi, they decided to consult the oracle as to whether the fates were favorable for their return voyage to Syria. The prophetess of Apollo, named Pythagoras, did not answer the question they had asked. Instead, she told his father that his wife was pregnant with a child, who was destined to surpass all men in beauty and wisdom, and who throughout the course of his life would contribute much to the benefit of mankind. When the child was born at Sidon in Phoenicia, around the year 580 BC, it was a son as the oracle had foretold. Nazarchus and Pythagoras named the child Pythagoras, for they believed that he had been predestined by the oracle. Many legends surround the birth of Pythagoras. Some told stories about how he was one of the gods, taking a human form to instruct the human race in divine knowledge. Pythagoras was one of the many sages and saviors of antiquity for whom an immaculate conception is asserted. In his Anacalypsis, Godfrey Higgins writes, "The first striking circumstance in which the history of Pythagoras agrees with the history of Jesus is, that they were natives of nearly the same country, the former being born in Sidon, the latter in Bethlehem, and both in Syria. The father of Pythagoras, as well as the father of Jesus, was prophetically informed that his wife should bring forth a son, who should be a benefactor to mankind. They were both born when their mothers were from home on journeys, Joseph and his wife having gone up to Bethlehem to be taxed, and the father of Pythagoras having traveled from Samos to Sidon, about his mercantile concerns. The mother of Pythagoras had a connection with an Apolloniacal spectre of the god Apollo which afterward appeared to her husband, and told him that he must have had no connection with his wife during her pregnancy, telling the same story relating to Joseph and Mary. From these peculiar circumstances, Pythagoras was known by the same title as Jesus, namely, the Son of God, and was supposed by the multitude to be under the influence of divine inspiration. Whatever may be the truth of his birth or origin, his life as well as work aren't any less shrouded with myths of divine greatness and wisdom, as we will see. Very little is known of his early life, beyond the fact that he won prizes for feats of agility at the Olympic Games. Having attained manhood and feeling dissatisfied with the amount of knowledge to be gained at home, he left his native land and spent many years in travel, visiting in turn most of the great centers of learning. The teachings of Pythagoras indicate that he was thoroughly conversant with the precepts of Oriental and Occidental esotericism. He traveled among the Jewish people and was instructed by the rabbins concerning the secret traditions of Moses. Pythagoras was initiated into the Egyptian, Babylonian, and Chaldean mysteries. Although it is believed by some that he was a disciple of Zoroaster, it is doubtful whether his instructor of that name was the godman now revered by the Parsees. Pythagoras was said to have been the first man to call himself a philosopher. Before, the wise men had called themselves sages, which was interpreted to mean those who know. Pythagoras was modest, so he coined the word philosopher, which he defined as one who is attempting to find out. After his wanderings, around the year 530 BC, he established a school at Crotone, a Dorian colony located in southern Italy. This place at its time was known all over the civilized world as the most advanced learning center of Europe. Here Pythagoras taught his students about the knowledge he had acquired from the Gymnosophists and Brahmins of India, from the Hierophants of Egypt, the Oracle of Delphi, the Idaean Cave, and from the Kabbalah of the Hebrew rabbis and Chaldean magi. The school of Pythagoras had several peculiar characteristics. Every new member was obliged to pass a period of 5 years of contemplation in perfect silence. The goal of Pythagoras's discipline of silence was to develop a more reflexive mind by taking control of your words, which at its time was a never-before-seen technique in Western thought schools. With these kinds of ascetic practices, the students would detach themselves from the sensory, physical world, developing their mind and their connection to the oneness. His teachings were in a great measure kept secret, and certain knowledge was only available to students who have attained a certain rank based on their ability. No person was permitted to commit to writing any tenet or doctrine, and as far as we know, no pupil ever broke the rule until after his death and the dispersion of the school. It is recorded that the school was divided into two divisions: the science of numbers, which branched into arithmetic and musical harmony, and the theory of magnitude, further subdivided into geometry and astronomy. For the natives of Europe, the first systematic contact with the concepts of properties of numbers, the principles of music, and physics was all because of Pythagoras. Those mathematical ideas, exotic and unknown at that time in Western thought schools, were acquired in his extensive travels and would form the later basis for his doctrines. The most striking oddities of these doctrines are dependent on the mathematical conceptions and numerical ideas upon which his philosophy was based on. In the upcoming videos, we will go more into all the details of this philosophy of numbers. The underlying concept seen through these doctrines teaches that the principles that govern the numbers are the same principles that govern the universe, be it seen or unseen. Because of that, numbers were used to represent a lot of philosophical concepts, representing elements of reality in the elements of numbers. For around 40 years, Pythagoras was sharing and further refining his teachings here before an end was put to his institution, and he himself was forced to flee from the city, owing to a conspiracy and rebellion which arose on account of a quarrel between the people of Crotona and the inhabitants of Sybaris. He succeeded in reaching Metapontum, where he is said to have died about the year 500 BC. After the original school was dispersed, the chief instructors became Cleinias and Philolaus at Heraclea, Theres and Eurytus at Metapontum, and Archytas, the sage of Tarentum. In the next video, we will be going into detail on Pythagorean teachings on numbers and why they are thought of as the underlying substance of all reality. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video, and feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or knowledge to share.